we are going to look at the United Organization. What's the United Nations Organization? This is the organization which was formed in 1945 after the fall of League of Nations. This organization replaced the League of Organization, and it has got very many objectives, which include maintaining international peace, promoting human rights, encouraging social development and economic development, promoting international law, providing humanitarian aid, and very many others. And this organization, it's still in existence. Up to now, it is of high importance in this country. It operates in very many sects, and very many people use it. Very many people gain from it. And its structure and organization include the General Assembly, the Security Council, International ICJ, International Court of Justice, the Secretariat, the Trustship Council. However, it's specialized in agile. It has what we call FAO. It has what we call UNICEF. There is UNESCO. UNICEF, many of you, I think you know what we call UNICEF. This organization of UNICEF, it's for children. United Nations Children's Fund. And there is also what we call UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organizations. It deals with that sector. We also have what we call WHO, World Health Organization, dealing with the health sector, and ILO, International Labour Organization, and very many others. One of the roles of the UN, I want to just introduce it first, and we go to the main issues: peacekeeping and the conflict resolution, disaster relief. There's what we call promoting education. For example, under UNESCO, it promotes education, health, and human rights. UN also monitors elections and democracy in the country. For example, here in our country, UN helps to monitor these elections that take place and makes sure that they are transparent, not cheated, and the human rights are protected while elections are going on. So those are the roles of UN. It comes in to help. And by the way, for it, it helps its members. If you are not a member of UN, it can't allow you to enter. It can never allow you. It has 193 members that are in UN. The major aims of UN in this world, it protects human rights. That's the only thing I know about it, that it does. Protects human rights everywhere. Everywhere you go, you will find UN, 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 and maybe it normally intervenes in the health issues. For example, when we had COVID-19, UN did a lot to see that COVID-19 is regulated in this country, especially Uganda. It helped us. Um, what I want us to know more about the UN, because when we are looking at the UN, we highly see it in this country. Yeah, it has the aims and objectives. The aims and objectives of this organization. One, UN organization maintain international peace and security. Maintains international peace and security. For example, when the war is taking place in a certain country, let's say that Uganda, we have got a war. UN comes in to help. For example, these weak states, our states are very weak. UN will have to come and help us. For example, it will settle the displaced people, internally displaced people, the refugees. Eh? Members, you know, these Somalis we have in our country, for example, here in Uganda, most especially in Kisenyi, those who are registered under UN, they get some money at the end of the month. That money helps to make them to comfort them where they are displaced. And the UN aims at preventing wars and conflicts between countries. It fights a lot to make sure that the countries don't fight. And in Uganda here, it helps us. For example, in DR Congo, it was helping Uganda against the ADF in DR Congo. You will see those big cars, you will see guns, taking guns, assistance to defend, most especially its country. We got another thing. Promotes friendly relations among nations. UN encourages nations to live peacefully and cooperate regardless of race, religion, language, or political systems. Why? You know, some countries have a tendency of like harassing one another. UN tries to make these peaceful cooperations regardless of race or religion. As you are aware that we are not of the same color, not of the same tribe, religion, what UN comes in. Some countries may hate others simply because of the religion. The other one is a Muslim, this one is a Catholic, this one is what? But there is that tension between them, which is like hatred. Now, UN tries to help these countries not to fight, not to cause any harm. You see, the aim is at measuring in protecting and maintaining peace. It also fosters understanding, mutual respect, and non-aggression among countries. So to make these countries understand each other, not to cause harm to the natives. Thirdly, to achieve international cooperation, solving global problems, for example, poverty. UN fights a lot to make sure that the countries are not poor and the natives are not poor. Diseases, at times you find that we have very strong diseases that can't be managed by our country. For example, pandemic COVID-19, HIV, have malaria, and if you try to, if you are come from our countries like here in our villages of Uganda, we have got these mosquito nets. They normally give them out for free, mosquito nets. If you try to check, you will see the word UN. They are given out freely. And it fights a lot to see that people don't suffer from malaria. Also HIV. At times, this medicine is given out freely. See that people don't suffer from diseases. You see the roles of UN maintaining good standards of living. And when it came to COVID-19, UN could not sit. It made sure that people are very good. Those of you who went to the hospitals to get that AstraZeneca and what, most of them were funded by UN. Another one, we have natural disasters. These natural disasters normally occur in our countries. For example, what happened in Bududa, what happened in Kasese, in River Kajera, what happened in that Kasasiro part of Kampala. I don't remember, I've forgotten. But UN normally comes in to help, most especially what has happened to people. It gives out those temporary tents for people to stay in. What has happened to people? Have they died? It comforts the people by providing free, by providing some money and help. We also have education. Education. It also helps to promote education. Banang educate this UN. It funds some schools, and it also creates and it also constructs some schools. It helps them under UPE. Refugee crisis, another problem. It helps in refugee crisis. Yeah, I talked about that. For example, our Somalis in this country, they are highly helped by the UN. Highly helped by the UN. It gives them money at the end of the month. You will look at those Somalis, especially around Kampala in Chisenyi on 27th. You will hardly see them in Kampala moving around with their money. Know that the UN has given them some money. And in Kenya, it does so, and also in Turkey. Turkey has the highest number of refugees in this world. So UN operates much in that country. Hunger and famine. Also have the problem of hunger and famine. Yeah. It also comes in to people who are in this state of hunger and famine, especially in Karamoja. Those people are not, their life is destabilized since time, but UN tries to help, and people promote their good standards of living. Number 4, UN promotes and encourages respect of human rights. The UN works to respect human rights and freedoms of all people, regardless of gender, nationality, race, or religion. Yeah. UN will always work hard to see that the rights of humans are respected. For example, when it comes to elections in Uganda, and very many things, in very many aspects, where the violation of human rights will occur, you will see UN intervening. When it comes to elections, it will send journalists to monitor the elections. It will display, it will expose, and it will help in case of any violation of human rights by talking to the people concerned, or by putting measurements such as arresting, and by stopping, or by employing its soldiers not to violate human rights. And it operates this under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This one was initiated in 1948. 1948, to make sure that the human rights are protected and under this organization, this body, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to monitor the abuse and encourage fair treatment worldwide, regardless of tribe, regardless of religion. For it goes everywhere. You will find UN. I think the only states that are not in UN, it's only Vatican and some other states, but they are very few. The reason why Vatican is not in a member of UN, they take it to be as a peaceful state. They think it's very peaceful. So for it, it's not under UN. And another thing, the role of UN uphold international law. International law, yeah. The UN aims at develop and enforce international law that govern relationships between states under the International Court of Justice that settles legal disputes and gives advice on non-legal matters. Members, if the case is very big, if the case doesn't fit in a certain country, if the case is between countries, it's taken to ICJ, the National Court of Justice, and the UN highly operates under this organization. It's taken there. For example, we had the case of Kony in Uganda was taken to ICJ. It was taken to ICJ simply because that case was very big and it was dealing with a terrorist, someone who wants to terrorize the life of people, violate human rights. That's why it was taken to ICJ. The case was very big. And if countries try to fight, also the case is taken to ICJ. But the best way of resolving conflicts, it's by peace talks. Peace talks. These peace talks is the best way of resolving conflicts, and it's highly encouraged by UN. Another thing, promote social and economic development through specialized agencies like FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, WHO, World Health Organization, to reduce poverty and improve education, promote health, support agriculture and food security, and promote sustainable development. Number 7, we also have what we call humanitarian assistance. UN provides humanitarian assistance. UN delivers aid to people affected by wars, disasters, and poverty. If we get a problem, such as disasters, members, UN must intervene because we are members. For example, Uganda, we are members of UN, UNICEF, and UNHCR will provide food, shelter, medicine, all those, and protection for refugees and vulnerable people. Vulnerable people, these are the people who may be, they include like disabilities, women, children, vulnerable people, these people who are weak in nature. UNICEF is strict on children. When you violate the rights of children, UN will come. Or if UN gets, if your children get, if we, for example, if we have a war and the people get displaced, UN, specifically the agency of UNICEF, will target the young children see that they are in comfort. Another one, we have protect environment and tackle the climatic change. UN leads global effort to reduce environmental destruction, and it organizes global climate summits and supports sustainable environmental processes. We also, the UN Environmental Program, UNEP, helps countries manage resources and deal with climatic change. What you should know here, that it normally gives advice. For example, not to carry out deforestation, not to do to carry out afforestation and reforestation, and not to pollute the environment by gazetting areas where the industries must be and where people should stay, not to pollute the air, water, what and what. UN will highly put measurements on how to protect the environment. But the problem with our nations today, the baddest thing they are doing is deforestation. Deforestation. Deforestation by cutting out these trees. When you cut out trees, know that we are going to face a lot of problems, including soil erosion, which will lead to poor agricultural produce and poor settlement. That's why in some areas we are having the problem of landslides, simply because deforestation. Mm, Another problem, eliminate colonialism and support self-determination. Most especially after World War, the UN supported many countries in Africa, Asia, and Caribbean to gain independence. What we call colonialism, this is the way how these states are being governed by the colonialists after gaining their independence. That's what we call colonialism. So UN supported many countries in Africa, Asia, and Caribbean to gain their independence. There are very many ways of seeing that colonialism still exists in our countries. We still have that colonial existence in us. For example, the language. Right now we are using English. We could be using our language. They intervene in our laws. You see, the other time they were telling us to pass the bill of homosexuality in Uganda's parliament, and we imitate their nature, their life. For example, you see, when you are, for example, if you are a Muganda, someone who is a Muganda, we had our own way of dressing, singing, cultural practices, but they make them look weird, and they table their cultures as for them as they look better than ours. So that's why these countries are still governed by colonialists indirectly. So the rule is indirect. Another thing, we have promoting disarmament. Disarmament. This is the when a country no, this is senior three. Disarmament. This policy was initiated most especially around 1940s, 1930, after World War One of 1921 or 1914, aiming to weaken the states that were involved in World War One. they used to make those states not to manufacture weapons and not to own dangerous weapons. That's what we call disarmament. Encourages countries to reduce and eliminate weapons, especially nuclear weapons. One of the things that leads to wars, it's where you find a country having dangerous weapons. Mm? That pride and encourages them to fight. Mm? You find the president of certain country arrogant, what? So if they disarm that president, if they disarm that president, the pride will reduce. You never know. He will not fight nuclear weapons. So UN encourages countries to reduce the manufacture of those weapons. The major aim is targeting peace. So it promotes peace through disarmament treaties and monitoring armed development. It also monitors what are you developing, what are you doing, what you are doing is dangerous, you do this, don't do this. So those are the roles of the UN, and also encourages culture and educational cooperation under UNESCO, promotes global cultural heritage, literacy, and scientific development. If you see that your cultural practices are undermined, for example, someone is a Munyankore, Muganda, Chiga, and you see that your cultural practices are undermined, members, UN will come in. Now, here we have the people who used to circumcise girls. They are concerned. They were like, our cultural practices are undermined. After the Declaration of the Human Rights in 1948, these people said, even President Museveni, by the way, talked of it, and he condemned it. Circumcising girls, no, it was not good. However much it was a cultural practice, UN had to regulate this. Remember, in 1948, all those years, we had no razor blades. These girls were circumcised using reeds. I don't know if you don't know reeds. If you know reeds, they're like sugar canes, small. They're not bamboo, but they are like sugar canes. They were used to circumcise girls. And stones, sharp stones. Can you imagine that pain? So they used to circumcise girls following the cultural practices. And after 1948, still girls were being circumcised, but it was looked like it was done by force. Like the way you see here in Uganda, even Basoga still cut out in Baru. But let this thing be done peacefully. They hunt for someone somewhere, even if they find you in a cupboard, and for them they come from bad, and they find you in a cupboard, they circumcise you forcefully. So UN said no. Let's put a peaceful way of doing this. Let someone go to the hospital. Oh, let someone decide whether he wants to be circumcised or not. But during a long time, where there were no razor blades, these people, and a good example I can give it of Muslims, for example, for them, they wanted it. It was a command from it's their religion, that's they must be circumcised. And there was no razor blades. Those people who circumcised to enter Islam that period, they had strong, we call it intention. In Islam, they call it niyyah. Can you imagine using a reed, a sharp stone to circumcise you? I see that your heart is very gumite. Mm. It also encourages nations to exchange knowledge and protect languages, support cultural diversity. In new curriculum, they encourage children to use their languages and exchange knowledge, support cultural diversity. Under new curriculum, you must exercise all this. You must cater for someone's culture. Let that child speak the language he wants. So the UN, the major point was that encourages culture and educational cooperation. Another one, it fights against discrimination and inequality. Discrimination is normally seen in tribes and religion and gender. That's where discrimination is highly seen. But UN works ensure gender equality, racial discrimination, and empower minority groups. What you should learn is that all people in this world, we are of the same, we have the same feelings, and we must be treated equally. Discrimination is not good. Discriminating someone because of the color, no, that's stupidity. And discriminating someone because of the religion, no, because that's decision. Someone to be a Catholic, it's a decision. Someone to be a Protestant, someone to be a Muslim, it's a decision. Therefore, discrimination, it's not good. That's why you will see it telling you that let this religion exist, but don't discriminate this one. Let this tribe exist, but don't discriminate this one. Let these people exist, but don't discriminate. Now, no one has a choice to be a woman. You didn't have a, you didn't, we didn't vote for someone to become a man. Why do you discriminate a woman? Why do you discriminate a girl? Why do you harass a child? Because he will also grow up. Don't discriminate. So UN uplifts the status of women, children, and the disabled. And some people go beyond and have people disabled. Find someone who doesn't talk, who has a problem, someone is discriminating that person. Members, I think apart from UN, let's check on our behaviors and way of living. You are not supposed to discriminate someone who is disabled. Another one, UN promotes sustainable development and goals, SDGs. In 2015, UN adopted 17 SDGs aimed at ending poverty, protecting the planet, and ensuring prosperity for all. Now, our countries normally have goals, for example, in this Chisanja. UN will always come in to help. What did this one say? The president said that this time we are fighting poverty. UN will have assist in that, in fighting that, protecting and maintaining the lives of people here in Uganda. So UN and promoting, targets promoting sustainable development goals. These are the main structures or the organs of the UN. I told you the 93 members, the General Assembly. No, but these ones I introduced them. Another thing, what you should know about UN is mm, the role of UN in promoting peace in Uganda. Now, specifically, this is targeted. Role of UN in promoting peace in Uganda. Where have you seen UN in our country? Many of you have seen UN, might have seen the cars of UN. You might be sleeping under the UN mosquito net. Appreciate UN. You might have been in a place where UN is promoting its member, its security. For example, during the elections, I managed to see the security. I also witnessed the journalists of UN here in Uganda. Now, UN has done much to protect the peace in this country. For example, number one, supporting peace talks and conflict resolution. Supporting peace talks and conflict resolution. The UN has mediated peace negotiations, especially during the conflict involving the Lord's Resistance Army in northern Uganda. Members, this Lord's Resistance Army, it was the one of the man called Kony. I told you about Kony. Kony, who wanted to overthrow Museveni, especially after 1960, 1986. When President Museveni came into power, Kony and his sister, he called Kwena, in northern parts of Uganda, they also became a problem. They wanted to overthrow government, the government of them. But these were assisted by the UN. Up to 2006, it ended. We no longer have their disturbances in parts of northern Uganda. But what did UN do? UN assisted. It employed soldiers. One, two. It safeguarded the people in northern Uganda. And by the way, those people in northern Uganda, they had guns during that period, because if a certain area has wars, you will find some people hiding guns. And that's what happened. Since people who hide guns are dangerous, and I know our government fights that, see that you don't have a gun illegally. When people own guns illegally, it's high insecurity to the countries and to the people. So UN tried to disarm people in northern Uganda, and it provided technical diplomat support in both national and regional peace processes. So UN helps in conflict resolution. It assisted the country, funded, to see that it fights Kwena and Joseph Kony, who he doesn't know where he is now. So we no longer have wars in Uganda simply because UN assists. That's hence promoting peace. Another one, we have protecting human rights. protecting human rights. UN also protects human rights in our country. It monitors respect for human rights, I told you, regardless of race. Its agencies, like the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights, we have it here in Uganda, see that the human rights are highly protected, not violated. People not to be arrested, not to be abducted, and not to be harassed. People who normally violate the human rights include the military, the police, and the armed people. They normally violate the human rights. So you will find UN fighting hard to train the police on how to handle people, and especially the women, the younger people, so that their rights cannot be violated. And what a problem! People don't know their rights. It's also a problem. You will find someone being slapped, being caned in order to be forgiven. That's not, you are not supposed to be slapped. You are not supposed to be caned in order to be forgiven. You are supposed to be taken to the courts of law first. Another one, we have rehabilitation of war affected areas. Yeah, UN has helped to rebuild schools, hospitals, roads, roads in post-conflict areas. If a certain country have wars, if a certain country have conflicts, after those conflicts, UN comes in to resettle that area. For example, it will come and reconstruct roads. It will come to reconstruct roads, hospitals, and rebuild schools. Here in Uganda, they are giving, especially in North. When we had the war, by the way, for example, here in Uganda, we had the war in 19. A moment. When we had a war here in Uganda, after 1986, remember those people in Luweero were highly affected by that civil war. Those people didn't go to school simply because of the war. And very many schools were destroyed, hospitals, roads. What UN did, it intervened and it reconstructed the schools in Luweero Triangle, because very many people did go to school and schools were used by the army, and hospitals were destroyed, roads were destroyed. So UN helped in that, and it reconstructed those structures. This also contributes to social stability and peace after decades of violence. So when the violence ended, UN stabilized peace by reconstructing. Another one, we have supporting refugees and internally displaced people. Members, when a certain war happens, or if there is a conflict somewhere, we have what we call IDPs. IDPs, these are the people who get displaced in the country. And refugees, these are the people who move from one place to another, looking for settlement, for better life. UNHCR, United Nations High Commission for Refugees, will do that. We'll provide shelter, food, education, protection in both refugees and Uganda's displaced wards. And we'll find that here in our country, when a war happened in Luweero, we find that there are people who moved from Luweero, maybe to Masaka. They went to Masaka. Others went to Marara. Others went where? UN will always look for those people, because there is nothing bad on this earth like a war. When a war happens, know that that's the start of your poverty. Life will be you will be poor, because if you are a farmer in Luweero, let's say, and a war happens, that means that you have to vacate your land and go. And I don't know, it's raining this side. That's why I'm trying to use that energy. You will find that you have to vacate your land and go somewhere. And after going somewhere, life won't be easy. You remember when Amin was chasing these people, the Indians from our country? Those people left behind wealth. They're wealth behind. When it all happens, you can't even leave your car. You leave your children, you leave everything, and you go like that. So you will have to find that you are in a poor state where you will be needing help. So UN nobody looks for those people
provides them with food and protection, among others. And this prevented further conflict over resources. It also encourages these people who are fighting always not to harm the peaceful people and not to attack things like hospitals. It's not good. Another one, we have promoting education and youth empowerment. Promoting education and youth empowerment. UNICEF, that one deals with children. UNESCO, that one deals also education and culture, science. Yeah, improved access to quality education, especially in conflict-affected areas. Remember, the reason why you hear the word conflict-affected areas, because the conditions of people who are in war is always not good. These people, you find them not going to school, you find them with no food, you find them with no shelter, no water, what and what. Now, under UNICEF, by promoting education, it will target children who are affected by the war, who have stopped education, and it will cater for them by constructing schools, by working on their issues as children, and also empowering youth. For example, creating jobs, setting up industries to create jobs for the youth. But I don't know here if in Uganda it has done so, because the problem of unemployment is high, and the majority of the youth are unemployed. So I think it's also fighting hard to see that youth get employment. One, the major thing of making youth go to school or get employed, it's helped reduce the youth involvement in violence and promotes peace building. When the youth becomes redundant, people aged from 45 and below, or 40 and below, when these people become redundant, someone who has know what to do, you will find that someone trying to violate some rules, taking drugs, committing crimes freely. You'll find someone slapping you for nothing, just because he has no what to do. He's trying to look for the wars. So the empowerment of the youth and education helps reduce youth involvement in violence, hence promoting peace. Another one, we have supporting gender and equality, supporting gender equality and protection of women. UN Women and other agencies support the empowerment of women and girls in Uganda. They promote men's participation in peace building, leadership, and economic activities. Before this, what you should know about women is that their rights were violated, and they decided to take a back seat, since because they were women. Number one, they were not allowed to go to school. Two, women could not involve themselves in leadership. Three, and in economic activities. Women and girls were taken to be like of a less value in a community. But UN decided to cater for these people and uplift their status in the community by taking them to school. When you study history, the history of women, it's not, you will less hear the name of the women that such and such a woman contributed to this, But around here in 1980s, that's when you start here women. That's when you hear of women like Cecilia Ward, this women, this spiritual activist who was recently imprisoned. She's called yeah, that's when you will see some women. And they also set up schools for girls to study. Girls used not to go to school. Only boys were given that chance of participating in education. Hence improving their status. Another thing we must look at, it provides humanitarian assistance, food, aid, water, health, and shelter during conflict. UN, we see it there, helping people in most cases when there is a war. It will always provide shelter, provides care, food, and water. Some areas don't have water. UN normally constructs boreholes in those areas. For example, in Karamoja, people still have the problem of water. Move long distances to find water. And in this regard, when the problem of water happens, when a certain area has a problem of water, you will find that there is child labor. Child labor. Someone fetching water 6 kilometers from where he stays, and the child, you find that fetching water, a 20-liter jerrycan, carrying a 20-liter jerrycan twice a day. This is like violating a child's right. This helps reduce tension and ensures peace in vulnerable communities. When it provides humanitarian assistance, it ensures peace, especially in vulnerable communities. Another one, we have environmental protection and climate peace. I talked about this. UN promotes sustainable use of natural resources and prevents environmental conflicts, especially in areas affected by climate change and land degradation. Here we have Bududa. Recently, the last time we had Bududa, where landslides could happen. Also, UN could go there and assist the affected people by placing them in good areas. And by the way, it also encourages people not to stay in those areas. So when you are moving to here areas, we'll find those big posts of UN telling you that you should not settle here or you should not camp here because the area is dangerous. Another one, we have youth engagement in peace building. UN organizes peace clubs, workshops, leadership programs for the youth to involve them in non-conflict resolution. I don't know why the UN fears the youth, but we talked about empowering them. All this is aimed at maintaining the peace. So it normally tells the youth in workshops and other clubs not to be violent. Not to be violent. aiming at promoting peace. Another one now, preventing and responding to gender-based violence. When the UN supports the government and non-government organizations to fight sexual violence, especially in refugee settlements and former conflict zones. Yeah? You know, when there is a war, I normally use the example of Uganda because I know it better. When the war happens, especially these soldiers who are indisciplined, they try to rape and defile women. By not responding to the rules governing their ethics, they fight. UN fights sexual violence. UN will always condemn this and will imprison people who do this. And when it comes in Uganda, these people who normally come in as refugees and settle in areas, for example, Nakivale, besides Tanzania and Uganda, where we have that camp. Last year, we received this case of sexual violence. Since these people are somehow vulnerable, they will be undermined by energetic men of Uganda who will try to rape and defile them. So UN supports government to fight sexual violence, especially in refugee settlements and former conflict zones. Because these people, some people will look at them as they have nothing to do. Since I'm a soldier, I'm also fighting. Let me rape you and I go. So UN will always fight that. Survivors also receive legal aid, medicine, and counseling. Another one, we have combating poverty and inequality. UN developed agencies like UNEP help to reduce poverty by supporting income generating projects, job creations, especially for the youth and the women. I told you the way of reducing poverty is by creating jobs. So UN does that by constructing industries, by providing jobs to the youth. Last, I remember when they were giving out mosquito nets, I registered my name in my vacation of senior form. And I was also involved in giving out nets, mosquito nets. So they tried to employ me. Another thing is peace education and community dialogue. UN supports community reconciliation programs, dialogue, peace education in schools and communities to rebuild trust among people. And another one, let me try to be speedy, strengthening institutions for justice of law. Yeah, in Uganda here, where we have a problem, we still have a problem of justice and law. You will find someone grabbing a land from someone and saying that Ojakun Kolachi, what will you do to me? And when you go to courts of law, you can't win that person simply because he's a big person, comes from a certain family, and you will find that it's a problem find justice. But this is the role of UN now. The UN supports legal reforms, judicial training. It will always train lawyers, people, and corruption efforts in Uganda. It will come in. UN will always monitor our courts. Is there justice? No. What should we do? Let's call these lawyers
and we retrain them on how to measure, on how to do, on how to improve on justice. Strong and fair institutions help prevent political and social unrests. This will help to prevent political and social unrests. All we are here, what you should know is that UN faces challenges in Uganda. And the challenges faced by UN are very many. It works with the government of Uganda to promote peace, human rights, health, education, refugee support, development. But under doing this, it faces several challenges while carrying out its work. Number one, we have limited funding. What you should know is that UN, as a body, as an organization, for it gets money from its member states. So it does not always receive money to support. Sometimes there is what we call limited funding. UN does not always receive enough money to support all its programs in Uganda. That's why I told you about the problem of unemployment. For example, the problem of unemployment is still a burden to our country. If UN can intervene, if it had no challenges, that problem would be solved. But since it's still a problem, it's affecting us, and it's affecting UN as an organization. It finds problems, especially while helping refugees and vulnerable people. It finds problem because of limited funds. Another problem, we have a problem of large numbers of refugees. If you are aware, in Uganda hosts many refugees from countries such as South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Somalia. I don't see Somalia, but Somalia, we still see Somalis. Sudan itself and South Sudan. Yeah, many people come. Those of you who know the side, that side of Kawanda, as you are heading to Bombolwero, this time round we have got a lot of Somalis that side. No, Sudanese. And you know, these people come with their culture, which is totally different from ours. So you will find that they are camping in a certain area where these people of Uganda won't bear with their culture. So Ugandans also decide to vacate and leave them and go somewhere. They end up camping in a certain area, and the whole area becomes of Sudanese, like the way you see Somalis in Chisenyi. You can't bear with their culture. Their culture is somehow different with yours. That's why some people decide to leave them alone. Now, this is becoming a problem to the UN. Large number of refugees. It puts pressure on UN resources for food. You find that UN has no food for these people. It's not enough. Shelter, healthcare, and education. Some people don't go to education simply because UN has failed to raise education reforms. Another problem is UN. Another problem faced by UN is poverty. Many Ugandans still live in poverty, making it difficult for UN to meet the growing demand of humanitarian and development assistance. The problem of poverty, it will take long to be solved. So it's still a problem. Climate change, food droughts, and the long dry seasons. For example, we had sunshine sunshine last time for almost today. Rain is raining in our side, but we had a problem of prolonged sunshine. Hmm? And what we call the climatic change, the way how it affects us in Uganda, it does not enable farming. It affects farming and food production. Therefore, UN spend more resources responding to these disasters. It spends more resources responding to these disasters. And also there is a problem of floods. When floods come, know that it will be a problem to UN by spending more money on maybe resettling the affected people, among others. Disease outbreaks is also a problem being faced by UN in our country. I think these days you hear of what we call Ebola. Uganda has experienced outbreaks of diseases such as Ebola, COVID-19, Mpox. These health emergencies require extra funding and medical support. Anything that is not budgeted for, it will always require for extra funding, and this will make bankruptcy easy. For example, COVID-19 almost made UN weak. Eh? Made UN weak because it required emergency extra funding. So it's also a problem, still finds the problem of this outbreak in country. Another one, human rights challenges. Oh, this is a big challenge in our country of violation of human rights, cases of child labor. I was reading a certain article yesterday. By last year, 2 million children, 2 million children, they were forced into child labor. Can you imagine? This is where we find children fetching water, carrying a 20 one with the 10 years, carrying a 20-liter jerrycan on his head. This is something very bad. So it's also taken to be a child labor. Gender-based violence is also a violation of human rights, where you find a man does not want a woman, treating a woman in a certain way, harassing, rape, defilement. That's gender violence, gender-based violence. And this is common in Uganda. Discrimination, this is like a wave, it's increasing day and day. These ones are harassing these ones are harassing these ones, the blacks are harassing these ones, but we are all people. You are not supposed to discriminate. And people normally discriminate basing on religion, tribe. Those two, religion, tribe, they are rampant in our country. And abuse continue to occur. Since it continues to occur, it makes it difficult for the UN to protect human rights. So, therefore, UN finds the challenge of violation of human rights. Another thing, we have corruption. Corruption, I think, members, if you are looking, this is corruption. This is the misuse of public resources. Can reduce the effective of development of programs supported by the UN. Some people, what you should know is that some people also decide to take the UN money itself. They give you money, they allocate it to a certain thing, and it's you take that money. This is not easy while UN is operating, and it's common. And what I know that the money, the follow-up of this money, at times it's not easy. For example, if they send money Oh, if they send materials like mosquito nets, you will find that someone takes 10 mosquito nets and makes those mosquito nets for as a rabbit habitat, chicken. You find someone rearing hens in a mosquito net. No, that's corruption. Misuse of public resources, reduce the effectiveness. Now, if you use those mosquito nets, take 10 of them, it means that some people will not get. So UN also still finds that problem. High population growth. Uganda's fast growth population increased the demand for schools, hospitals, jobs, and other services, making the UN work more challenging. Since your population reduces and grows day and night, this requires schools, a lot of schools. I told you that this requires emergency funding. Now you find that you need a lot of schools, hospitals, jobs. However much it may create jobs, but you still produce. So what you should do, you will find the solutions for this. And the solutions for high growth, maybe it can high growth of population, check on birth rates of people. We also have the problem of unemployment. UN as an organization find high problems with unemployment, especially young people, increasing poverty and eliminates development despite UN support. It also finds a problem of disagreements, differences between political groups. You know it better concerning during elections, and this can affect the implementation of some UN programs. Another one, we have poor infrastructure, bad roads, and limited transport in some rural areas make it difficult for UN to deliver aid and services. Hmm? If some people, for example, people will stay in Bududa, now you will find it hard for UN to bring aid or support you because you are in a hill area, and that's a problem of poor infrastructure. We also have the problem of food insecurity, low public awareness, dependence on donors. Yeah, I wanted this point number 14, dependence on donors. Many UN activities in Uganda depend on financial support from donor countries. For example, US. We find that US has to first help the UN and help us. So it also finds the problem of over depending on these donors. And we also have the problem of regional security conflicts in neighboring countries continue to bring refugees into Uganda. You see, in South Sudan, these neighboring states that are neighboring us, countries, South Sudan is bringing refugees here day and night, day and night, day and night, day and night, increasing pressure on UN humanitarian operation. On UN humanitarian operation. Now, members, I don't know if you are looking at this scenario. No, what I wanted first, not before the scenario, as a new curriculum student, what do we learn from United Nations organization? What do we learn from this topic? Number one, after learning about United Organization, learners develop the following values: peace, living peacefully with others; unity, cooperation, must respect, tolerate, what we call tolerance; love, compassion. We learn responsibility and the honesty, justice, equality, human dignity, and patriotism. patriotism, one must love his country. Are you getting me? Yeah, so those are the values we get when we learn the United Organization. I think that's the things which can be asked on the United Organization. They will ask you how it promotes human rights, how it promotes peace in Uganda, the challenges faced by the UN, and we no longer ask questions in that format. Our question, all of you can say, I think you can see the question. It's a scenario-based question saying that two neighboring countries have been at war for several months. As a result, thousands of refugees have entered Uganda. The United Nations organization, the United Nations provides food, medicine, clean water, and temporary shelters to the refugees. However, some members of the host community complain that UN is helping refugees more than Ugandans. Others argue that UN is only doing what was created to do. At the same time, UN faces the problem of such limited funds, insecurity, and increasing number of refugees. So that's a scenario question. Now, here a task comes. As a learner, maybe of senior 3, senior 4, assess the work of United Nations in the above situation by explaining 5 roles it is playing and the 5 challenges it is likely to face. That's a task. 2, advise the host community on 5 values they should demonstrate towards the refugees and explain how these values can promote peace and unity between refugees and Ugandan citizens. Members, that's what they normally ask. They normally ask about what the UN does. They normally ask about the challenges in your scenarios, and they ask about the roles of UN in promoting peace in Uganda. I think that's what I had you for today. That's what I had you for today. And I don't know if there is any supplement or any clarification. Is there any supplement?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for the class today, Teacher Mukama.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the class today. Thank you for the insightful knowledge about United Nations. We are all learning here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for laboring to make it up to our learners this early morning. This class has been recorded. It is going to be uploaded on the school ERP on the Magezi Harvest platform. Our learners can always access it.